Hello, everybody. It is Thursday in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. My name is Adam Bittner, Assistant Sports Editor for Multimedia at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, joined for our weekly Zeise's Right chat by Paul Zeise, Post-Gazette sports columnist. Paul, how are you? A lot going on. Steelers OTAs. Pirates have played some interesting ball lately. We got a lot to get into.
I'm doing all right. I'm having one of those days where, when you get like one of those like summer colds, and it just knocks you out, and then you go and it's hot out and everything else. You know how miserable that is. Well, that's where I'm at right now.
Well, Paul, we'll try to get you through it with some sports talk. Before we do, we're going to talk Steelers quarterbacks. We're going to talk Justin Fields, Russell Wilson, a lot of the national feeding frenzy that's kind of surrounded this Steelers quarterback competition, for lack of a better term, even though I think a lot of people locally don't quite see it as a competition. So we're going to get into that. We're going to get into the Pirates and whether it's time to take them seriously or not, given their recent winning streak. Before we do, just want to thank our sponsor, Pella Windows and Doors. There's no better place to get new windows and doors installed in your home than Pella, who can help you save on energy costs year-round. Schedule a free in-home consultation with your local Pella Windows and Doors to find the right product for your home and budget. Give them a call at 866-593-1560 to discuss your project further. That's 866-593-1560 to get started planning on your new windows and doors installation with Pella Windows and Doors of Pittsburgh. Paul, Justin Fields is really popular with a lot of people, especially in the national media, but I think there's also a lot of fans that really want to see him press Russell Wilson. The impression we're getting from our Steelers guys, Jerry Dulac, Ray Fittipaldi, Brian Bacco, is that this is not a real competition. It's a competition in the way, Mitch Trubisky versus Kenny Pickett was in 2022, where it was pretty much Mitch's job to lose in those first, 6-7 games of the season. So let me ask you this. Is this just wishing for the Steelers to kind of have some stability at quarterback finally after 5 years of, first going through Ben Roethlisberger, the end of Ben Roethlisberger's career, going year to year with that, going year to year with Trubisky, Pickett, Rudolph, and now going year to year with this? Do you think Justin Fields, people actually are that excited about him, or they just want a young guy who's going to be in place for a long time?
I think what is really at play here, Adam, is that people have convinced themselves. I was just actually listening to the morning show on the Fan a little bit ago, and am I missing something? Did Justin Fields all of a sudden become where his last 3 years he was one of the best quarterbacks in the league, and that he was completely unstoppable, this unstoppable force at quarterback that every team in the world, every team in the league was clamoring for, but somehow the Steelers won the Derby for? Did I miss that? Because what I see is a guy who has never proven he can play at this level and at a really high level. He's never, ever proven that he can be a guy who wins at a high level. He's never proven he can be a consistent enough thrower or passer to be that guy that everybody seems to want him to be. So, in what world, if you look at what Russell Wilson has done and what Justin Fields has done, in what world would you say that Justin Fields is better than Russell Wilson? I just don't even understand what the argument is here. I get it. And you're right. Probably people are clamoring somewhat because they want a young quarterback that's going to provide stability, that's going to provide, the next 10 years or 8 years or whatever. But look at the facts here. Now, does that mean that Justin Wilson can't develop and turn into a really good quarterback? Of course he can. He's got the talent, he's got some skill, and he's got all that stuff that, that the NFL wants now, with his ability to be a two-way quarterback and his ability to run and his athletic ability and all that stuff. But he's never proven he can do that. So to me, this is just a lot of, wishing and hoping that Justin Fields is a player that he's not, or he hasn't been to this point in his career. I mean, all you need to know, Adam, is when they wanted to trade him, they first started out saying, well, we need a first round or a second round pick for Justin Fields. And they ended up getting, what, a sixth? And I bet you if the Steelers would have waited another week, they might have got him for a seventh. So It's not like there was all these people out there that looked at Justin Fields and said, boy, this is our guy, man. This is a guy who can be really one of the best quarterbacks out there.
Yeah, and I mean, like again, I think there's reason for optimism. I'm not here to kind of drag Justin Fields. It's just a matter of, he hasn't proven it, and I think people that want this to be a real competition off the back, I do think that that's kind of more the motivation for them. It's saying, well, we've really had enough of what the Steelers have done at quarterback for recent years, and you're going into another year. But I don't fault them for what they've done, Paul. I mean, they got, I think, the two best guys that were available to them in this market without, having to trade up in the draft and go after some of these guys. Do what the Falcons did, drafting Michael Penix Jr. really high, or going after a Bo Nix, who was a proven loser for his entire college career. We've talked a lot about that. I think this was just the best play available to them. Bring these guys in, and I just don't quite understand there was all that initial excitement, and now it seems like people are already moved on to, well, we're not content with the situation, and try to see if Justin Fields can be the guy long term. I just think that's a really high bar. I think you got two solid options in here. See what happens and make some decisions later on.
No, absolutely, Adam. You hit the nail on the head. They didn't waste the first-round pick on this guy. They didn't sign him for big money. He's the kind of guy, actually, I kind of have to laugh a little bit, but isn't this the exact kind of move the Pirates make quite often? Where they go get a guy who, either has potential and hasn't lived up to, like Joey Bart or whatever, or they go sign a guy who's a veteran that they can get and for really, really cheap without risking anything, and then they hope to hit lightning in a bottle with them. I mean, this is the kind of move the Pirates do all the time. That's what they did to get Justin Fields. So I like Justin Fields. I think he's got some talent. I think he's, got the ability maybe to be a really good player. But I think people are losing their minds when they're talking about how he's in a place where he should be competing with Russell Wilson. If Russell Wilson doesn't clearly win the job, that's a problem, if you ask me, in my opinion.
Yeah, and if it's a discussion at midseason, then fine. But certainly now going into training camp, I mean, the idea that there's going to be a serious competition just that does kind of flummox me as well. Especially because it's backed up by the reporting of our guys, a lot of guys on the scene, and a lot of this competition chatter is from national media, and we know that national media often gets stuff wrong, and I think this is definitely on that list for now until proven otherwise. Paul, any thoughts on some of the other hot topics around the team this week? Cam Heyward, I guess we could call it a soft holdout. The schedule, the NFL draft coming, because I know you wrote about the schedule and a lot of the carping that people did last week after, particularly on the second half. Wanted to give you a chance to weigh in on that before we get into the Pirates.
Well, here I'll give you three things. Number one, the Steelers figured out really last year that with Jaylen Warren around, they don't need to give Najee Harris big money. They don't even need to give him that 5th-year option wasn't really even all that big of money. They don't have to do that if they don't want to, because they figured out they've got another running back who they picked up for nothing, and there are a lot of those guys around the league that are playing. So the whole thing with Najee Harris, to me, I look at Najee Harris as a guy who probably is playing his last year in Pittsburgh. I mean, I don't know how you sign him unless they sign him to a 2-year deal before the season or a 3-year deal. But I don't know that would make a whole lot of sense. You had him at a very reasonable price for one more year. You could have kicked the decision down the road for not that much money. It suggests to me that I'll be shocked if Najee Harris is a Steeler next year. I think Cam Heyward can still play at a pretty high level. I don't know that I want to say, they're going to give him 3 years beyond this year. I think that would be a little bit foolish. But if you're telling me that he's going to try and help the team out, but with cap relief, by saying, why don't we do one of these deals where even like there's a 3rd year that's sort of a dummy year where we dump some of the money into that year. And then he's willing to take a little bit less money for the 2nd year of the deal than he's making right now. Yeah, I mean, I can see what he's doing, and I can see the Steelers absolutely jumping at that. So I don't necessarily know that this means anything other than Cam Heyward is probably going to be here for another year or two. As for the schedule, you and I think talked about that. We knew what games they were going to play, right? It was just a matter of the order. And this whole thing about, well, they've got to play 3 games in 11 days. So do the Chiefs, so do the Ravens, so do the Texans, so do about 4 or 5 other teams that I went through the schedule at various points. Because if you play a Thursday game, there's a chance you're going to play 3 games in 11 days. So this thing is so stupid, and all of the crying and whining about it. I just thought I didn't understand, because the Steelers knew who they had to play, and quite frankly, playing some of those divisional games later in the season has actually benefited them, because the other teams in the division all have quarterbacks that tend to get hurt. So they play Baltimore without Lamar Jackson. They play Cincinnati without Joe Burrow. It's a completely different thing. It's a completely different situation than if you're playing with those guys. So my thoughts on the schedule, and I wrote about it, like you said, there's a lot of crying and whining. But as for Cam and Najee, if you're asking me right now, I would tell you that I think Cam will be in a Steelers uniform next season. Najee will not.
Yeah, that's kind of my expectation as well, Paul. And I know that bothers people. I know people love the 1-2 punch, but you can find, a number 2 behind Jaylen Warren in the draft. You can find those guys, even an undrafted free agents, as they did with Jaylen Warren. So I think that's the acquisition cost is just so low. I just don't see the real need to invest heavily in a guy who has not been spectacular, right? Like he's been solid, but I don't think he's been a star by any means. So I think that just makes their decision all the more easier. Paul, I want to get into another one of your columns that you wrote about the Pirates. Before we do, just want to thank another sponsor, Pitt Johnstown. It's a Pitt quality education with up-close and personal learning, a top-ranked Northeast Public College by U.S. News & World Report. Generous scholarships and financial aid are available, located on 655 picturesque acres with easy access to the city center, including shopping and dining. It's a vibrant campus life with an active D2 athlete community. Check out Pitt Johnstown today. Paul, you're always the guy on the show here that tells us to look big picture with the Pirates, and that we kind of get focused sometimes a little bit on what's in front of us and get distracted from the fact that baseball is a long slog. But you wrote this week after their series in Chicago that you think they can make the playoffs. So I want to just dig into that with you a little bit. What is your source of optimism over the long run? Given that I think that was one of their first series wins since that hot start. Because I will color myself still somewhat skeptical that they can do much other than when Paul Skenes and Jared Jones are starting.
Yeah. Well, the thing I'll tell you is, because baseball is such a long haul sport, and it's such a long sample size. If you have a pitching staff like the Pirates, you have a shot every single night to go out and win games. And I think one of the things that bringing Paul Skenes in has done, now, we've clearly moved Mitch Keller to the 3rd starter. And as I said before, when you measure Mitch Keller against top starters, around the league, he probably doesn't measure up really well. But if you measure him against the 3rd starter in almost every team, he probably measures up very well. So you can make an argument that 1 through 3, the Pirates rotation is as good or better than just about every team out there, especially the teams that are going to be fighting for playoffs. A couple of the teams at the top that have, big payroll teams that have superstar loaded, that's different. But all of the teams that are going to be, bouncing for that middle of the pack to try and be wild cards and whatnot, I'll take the Pirates top 3 against just about every single one of them. So when you think about it that way, they're going to give themselves an opportunity pretty much every night from the mound to win a game. Now, as we found out last night, they're complete and utter and ridiculous mishandling of the bullpen might negate some of that. But I would hope that, we will have very few more of these days where, well, we got to leave this guy out there because we don't have anyone else, because we're a pitcher short, because instead of DFAing Rowdy Tellez, we decided to send a relief pitcher down. So, I think if you look at it, I believe Oneil, Cruz, Andrew McCutchen, and Bryan Reynolds will all get better. I think they're all going to hit a little bit better than they have. And those are three guys that drive your offense. I think if you add Nick Gonzalez and what he's been able to do, and again, I'm not saying he's going to do what he did down in the minors, but what we've seen in a short sample is he drives in runs, he puts his bat on the ball. So he's a guy that you would have to say is an upgrade over, whatever mismatch of people they had at second before he got there. So I just see there's a room there for growth. And I think that if you look at this offense, Adam, I don't think they've got to get that much better to be able to take advantage of what they've done from the mound. And so as long as the pitching holds up, which I don't know that necessarily it's going to, because I think that it's not going to hold up, because I really think that their top three are good. Perez has started to show some leaks, but he's, that's been his career for the MO. He's been a guy who has some peaks and valleys. And I don't know, I don't know about you, but I can't believe I'm going to say this, but for a fifth starter, Bailey Falter has been incredible. So add all that together, it's a long way of me saying, Adam, I really believe that the Pirates do have an opportunity to start moving north in the standings. And they're not that far away. I think actually they're like one game out as we speak.
Yeah, the mediocrity and the lowering of the bar, you don't have to be one of the best teams to make the playoffs anymore, and I think that's something that certainly helps them, and you can have one good week like we've seen, and it can make a big difference in your season. So, I'll say that caveat, but I also still am just concerned about Oneil Cruz. Despite the exit velocity, all the highlights, and the fact that I think he's been hitting better lately, he's still at a career low OPS. It's like 739, and that's fine if he's just a complimentary piece. I think that's Jordy Mercer stuff, and I don't think the Pirates are going to get where they want to go with Jordy Mercer being the star hitter of the team, and that's my big concern, is that the way he's hitting decently for his position, and you can make a good case for him, but I think to be the star of the team, he's got to be a lot better than this.
No question. I think one of the things that's a little alarming is his OPS. His OPS has not, gotten above 800 this year. And I think you need your guy. If he's your guy, you'd be hard pressed to look around the league to find guys that are like guys who drive their offense, whose OPS isn't, 800, at least 800 or more.
Right. So that's kind of my big source of concern, but we'll see over the coming weeks whether he can bump things up a little bit and be more that hitter that I think they're going to need to make that kind of push. Paul, thanks for joining me. I know you got to go. So this was a great chat. I'm looking forward to talking to you again next week.
All right, Adam. Hopefully, Lord willing, and the creek don't rise. I told you I'm feeling. Hopefully I make it through today, and then we'll worry about next week.
Fingers crossed, Paul. Thanks for stopping by. And take care, everyone.
We'll see you. Bye-bye.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.